So right now, we're gonna get started on our webinar of top features Bobcam V11 for SolidWorks. Before we get started, remember we have a chat. Any questions, anything you like to ask will be on the chat. Also, at this moment, how many people are looking at us? So just give it a minute while we check. So we got people see we're streaming on YouTube. Okay, 11. Yes, we are streaming on YouTube right now. Let's see if we are at Facebook. Facebook, yes, we are. So the way this is gonna work, I'm gonna have all three platforms open at the same time. I will be looking at the questions. I will be looking at the comments and any questions you guys have. We're here for you. So just 1 second. Software. Okay. Live event. Live event. Okay, so at this moment we have 7 people on the webinar. Can you guys hear us okay? Can you speak, Eric? Maybe if you can hear me okay?
Yeah, if you're able to hear me on the other side, okay.
I can hear you. Okay, so please, just let us know through the chat if you're listening to us, if you can hear us correctly, just to make sure that we're getting through. And any questions you guys have, please let us know. So first, I think one of the most important things we have to determine when talking about Bobcam for SolidWorks, it's understanding what SolidWorks is and how does it interact with Bobcam for SolidWorks. So I'd like to ask a little bit of questions, like some questions here. SolidWorks users, how many SolidWorks users do we have here? Sure that the chat is active. The chat and make sure that yes, so it is active. Okay, so we have much participation today yet. Okay, so what Bobcam for SolidWorks is a complement. Where it's gonna make a difference is instead of having to do your part on SolidWorks, save it as a step IDS or whatever format. Bring it to your Bobcat, your Mastercam, your SurfCam, your Delcam, no matter, and then program it. You need to make any kind of change or any kind of modification. You have to go back to SolidWorks, do that, save the file, bring it back. So what's going to happen differently here is that you're going to have all the power and all the functionality that Bobcat can offers, but inside of SolidWorks. So you change your geometry, you modify your geometry somehow, your CAM part will change with it, making it extremely easy to be able to make revisions to your CAD geometry and revisions to your CAM in seconds. Okay, so I think that's the most important. Here are the most important features. We added a new interface that I think it's huge. We also added contextual bars. Something that I like to bring in is that if you're a SolidWorks user, you're going to be very familiar with these contextual bars. We added the ability to actually simulate and compute special tooling for roughing operations. The new toolkit, it's incredible. Of course, we're going to be looking into that too. Multiple selection, it complements the toolkit perfectly, but also it helps the whole workflow of the system we have the ability to not cut with the center of the tool when we're doing any kind of deburring. And there's new icons. There's you can copy and paste entire machine setups, and there's definitely new features to reduce vibration on your cutter, which is always very important. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Show us what you got, Eric.
Okay, great. So I'll switch over to my screen then.
Okay.
Send this training.
Again, at any point, feel free to ask any questions. We're here to help you out. Okay, so make sure to change the scene, change to your scene specifically, because right now we're still on my scene.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay,
There we go.
I'm gonna mute myself and I will interrupt you anytime I have a question. Okay,
Okay, sounds good.
perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Let me close out of Teams first here. Sorry about that. Don't want to get any interruptions in here. Okay, so we have SolidWorks opened. I'm on year 2023. We test all the way 5 years back with other SolidWorks programs, and it is fully integrated in SolidWorks, our BobCAM V11 here. You can see I'm in the CAM manager already, which is was tabbed over from the feature tree, from creating the sketch and creating the model here and being able to modify it. I would tab over to the CAM manager that loads in once BobCAM V11 is installed uh, into SolidWorks. Our workflow kind of starts from the beginning here where we will have our CAM defaults and we're able to start a new job. I can do some of the basic workflow here and then kind of show you how SolidWorks is fully integrated. So we select milling and we would select what type of milling machine we have. If we don't have the specific machine, we would normally send a post request, so making sure that you have a sample program and the formatting of the G code would be specific to any machine that you're using here. So I'd select a Haas 3-axis machine. I would select OK, select the workpiece, and then select the stock that I'm starting with before going through. So it'll bring up the stock page next that I can set up what specific stock I'm starting with, the specific shape, and then also our machine setup, setting our specific work offset for G54 work offset location. And from there, I would have all of that information set up in my milling job. And next, I can show you the once modifying any geometry in SolidWorks, BobCam will automatically uh, set up that geometry you've modified, and will modify the toolpath specific to how you've changed the geometry. So if we move over to the feature tree, I have a sketch set up right here that I could do an extrude cut to make this flat. This model, if I go in and go to features, go to extrude cut in SolidWorks, and do an extrude cut all the way across the 3D model, I still have the holes here, which I could select in the 3-axis toolpath whether to ignore or to do a roughing or finish inside of the holes here. But once I've tabbed back over to the CAM tree, we have a message that says the model geometry has been modified, and would you like to modify the geometry within the CAM tree to relate to the new modifications? So we would select yes. Our new geometry selected is this here. You can see the toolpath is still above the 3D model because I haven't computed the toolpath yet for the new geometry. So to do that, I would just compute all toolpath, and that 3-axis finish operation will update the toolpath specific to that new geometry. And if I want to right click on the milling job and go to compute all toolpath, I could compute the toolpath for each and every operation within that milling job. But you can see that the toolpath here is now modified to the new geometry there. And so once from here, I think we should be talking about the new V11 features. Tatiana, did you have anything specific that you had in mind to go over with any sort of
I
technical?
think we should focus on everything that the new interface brings for us. You know, the new abilities for linking, the new abilities, the new features for lead in and lead out, being able to mirror your part. I think if you can focus on those that that part of it, well, I think that'll be good. Let's get started with that.
So you were saying with mirroring the part is what you mentioned?
Mirroring different lead in and lead out, and the different options for linking.
Okay. Yeah, so for lead in and lead out, you were saying. Um, so I could probably go into the roughing to show that better. Trying to think of other newer features there. Um, yeah, maybe we could do like a profile around it. If you were speaking about the lead in and lead out options, we could go in to so from each milling operation from the milling job, we would right click from the machine setup from our work offset we've created, and we can go into our different milling operations. Uh, so we looked at some of the roughing in 3-axis toolpath here. If we go into mill 2-axis and did a profile operation around the loop here, around the tangency of what I just selected, we can select our top of feature where we're starting at and where we're finishing this profile operation at. Do a profile rough and profile finish. We have other 2-axis milling operations in here. Select our tools that we're using here for the roughing and the certain cut patterns. And we can go to the leads page. We have specific options here that you can select. Vertical would just be plunging down to the start point, but then we have new options for lead in and lead out. Some of these are basic ones with parallel starting in at a right angle and circular for a tangent lead in and lead out. Then we have specific point options where if you're starting at a start hole, doing many pockets at a time, you can select a specific start point at each one of them and be able to select the start points, lead in and lead out for each one, and specific direction, and also the machine sequence. So if you selected a custom option
What
here,
I mean is how the new interface gives us different options for lead in and lead out. That's what I mean. Like you show us how the new interface is going to help us um, have more options for lead in and lead out, as well as for different link options.
okay, so were you referring to the 3-axis for the advanced UI for lead in, lead out?
The advanced interface. Correct.
Okay, gotcha. I didn't know if you were referring to maybe like the point or point blend, but we have other lead in and lead out options than just the basic ones in 2-axis now as well, in 3-axis with our new advanced user interface. So if I go into either the 3-axis rough or finish of this SolidWorks part file, I can go to, from the feature page, I can scroll to the advanced rough here for each operation, and I can select the UI choice, the user interface choice, whether I want it to be standard or advanced. So if I selected advanced, I would select open advanced parameters, and then I would see this page, this new user interface here, which would be very similar to the Mill3Axis Premium advanced user interface. It's going to be where you tab over to your different selections. You can select whether it's 3, 4, or 5 axis in some milling operations, just as you would in the 3-axis premium toolpaths. You would have your gouge check page here. You would select your what to check for from the flute, the shaft, the arbor, and the holder of the tool, and then select your geometry for your gouge check functionality there. You have linking for each step over. So if you wanted to set up your linking moves for each step over, and also your lead in and lead out here. So if you went to,
So right there's going to be a big difference. When you're doing linking on Mill Pro, you're limited to only what kind of linking you're going to do. Right here, you're going to have the ability to define how the link is going to behave on different situations. So we can determine how are we going to link when we have a large gap between surfaces? How are we going to link when we have a small gap between surfaces? Do you want to retract? Do you want to follow the surface? What do you want to do? You know, when you go to the retract options and you actually include the lead in and lead out, you're going to have over 15 different options to approach your player. So there's going to be a big difference on the amount of options and control you're going to have with this. So I don't know if you maybe prepare a part where you can show an area that has a large gap and how it behaves with that. Same with the small gap, and show us the different kinds of lead in and lead out that we are integrating now into the new system.
try to think of a 3D model that I have that would be able to retract between two different surfaces like we have on the screen here, and if there's any obstruction between them, maybe if there's a clamp or anything in an assembly file, you could load in and make sure the tool avoids any geometry you have in the SolidWorks part file or assembly file. And so, let me go to different, let's go to folder here, on my desktop under demos. So let's see. 3-axis mill. That would have one pocket, but maybe I could put an extrude boss between two areas. I think this would be good. Oh, that's the Rhino file. Sorry. Could work though. So if I just did an extrude boss in between the two here, and did an extrude boss, both directions. So if I had to go between the two pocket areas here, I would go to Bobcam. Again, start a new job. You could also start a new job from a template. So if you had a milling job already set up for something like this, which I think I might, some sort of template here, have one of them for a milling job type. And so this one has a few drilling operations in it. I think it was actually set up for this part file. So the different sized drilling operations, and then an advanced rough and an advanced planer operation could all be a template. You just have to reselect your new geometry. Select a boundary. So I would select a boundary. There we go. And then compute the toolpath. it notices the height of the geometry I selected is higher than this location. So I would want to pick the top of my feature here. And then it'll be able to compute something for me. So here's a planar operation. There's no roughing yet. So let me go in. I would just do the roughing. I would select a small enough tool. Maybe I'll do half of that. Then I can go into the advanced UI and change the retracts here. So here's where you have different options. You have your home position. You can, from the clearance area, rapid or feed distance, and then it'll uh, retract from a certain location. If you want to retract to the home position, to the max Z position, you can set different locations like that and different retract options. This is the 3-axis toolpath that I have to set up. So machining surfaces. But while I'm selecting the geometry here, Tatiana, did you have any other points about the retract options here in V11? And especially in the UI options here, the advanced UI?
Well, basically, in a packet, there's going to be options where we're packing, and we will always go back to the top when we're packing. We are able to control that now and keep the tool down in our packet operations, just like we integrated that option for profiling. Now you can do that.
Right, right.
So again, like everything that you can show about this new interface. I thought you had some parts prepared on 30 on the 11.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you have prepared for us, please. Just, or you know what? It's better if you just show us what you prepared.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So, yeah, the retracts options, sorry, the start point is not like, there we go. Shoot. Entry. Yes, out of that one. So, yeah, and so with linking, what else do we have? I can open up that or tab over to that other part file. Okay. Yeah, so newer options in V11, new features that I can remember off the top of my head, especially with simulation. When we're simulating, we can now open it in a new window. So when we're simulating, we can move it to a second monitor, and then so we can be working in uh, not Bobcat, the SolidWorks, but Bobcam in SolidWorks, along with simulating at the same time. So this one still has the embedded option, and I believe from the settings I can change it in my Bobcam settings to be able to select from an embedded window to a
Eric,
separate window.
I got
Yep.
I got I got you started. I have to attend another meeting, but I think you got this. So you can continue on the
Okay.
line. Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye,
Great.
everybody. And any questions, we'll be here to answer your questions. Have a good day.
Great. Thank you, Tatiana. So again, with the comments, please let me know in the comment section any questions that you guys have, concerns, any maybe like feature requests, or you were saying maybe there's something that you wanted in V11 or in Bobcam or Bobcat that you haven't seen yet. Let us know in the comment section anything that you would like to see in the future, or something that you've seen on the new features page of V11. if there's anything that stands out that caught your eye there. So we'll go back to the 3-axis finish operation. Some of the new features. So the icons are all different here. I'll kind of start from the beginning of that page and move my way forward. So the new icons feature 2-axis. You can see is a 2-dimensional object, so it shows exactly what we're doing there. 3-axis is a 3D model. Drilling will have a different icon, and so if some people, I don't necessarily do this, but sometimes I might. I'll go in and say like 5/8 and something that doesn't relate to the drilling necessarily. That way, when you're going in uh, to revise things and you say, "Oh man, what feature is this?" I can't even remember from what I named it. You'll have the different icons there rather than just same similar icons as before. You also have, which reminds me, the contextual icons here. So if I highlight a feature or highlight an operation, you can see that it'll uh, create these contextual icons here. So if I wanted to edit the toolpath from here, I can do that. If I wanted to delete it, or if I wanted to copy or paste, there's a lot of different options from here to easily change rather than right clicking and going through all of the options. We do have a contextual toolbar there. Just like if you were to go into SolidWorks, into the feature tree, and you highlight one of the extrude bosses here, for example, you've got the contextual toolbar to edit the sketch, suppress it, roll it back. You go over here to, so a lot of similarities between SolidWorks and Bobcam in that regard now. You've got your contextual toolbar just like in SolidWorks. You have it in Bobcam. You have your different features as they're set up with the different icons. When we go in and we edit after the contextual icons, let's see, what else do we have new in V11? Oh, as we ended before, we also have our simulation. So if we go in, right click on the milling job, and go to simulation, or right at the top with this tab BobCam, our simulation. It'll now open a separate window for our simulation that we could move it over to a separate monitor, and we have our part file or our assembly file on one screen. We'll have our simulation on another screen so that we can modify these milling operations while we're simulating at the same time. It's kind of a good multitasking feature there. And that was under Bobcam settings. And then under Cam, this drop-down simulation window, whether I want it embedded in SolidWorks or in a separate window. And so from there, let me take a break and see if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, anything going on, anything in particular you would like to see of new features, or any excuse me, any questions about the new features on our new features page. And so with the new features, yeah, everything that is in our new BobCAD V36 will be in the new plugin V11 Bobcam for SolidWorks. So anything you saw in possibly V35 that wasn't in V10 or anything like that, it's great that everything is released within the same time period, so that we have V36 coming out at the same time we have V11 coming out, and all of the new features are now going to sort of sync up with each other. I think that's a great point to make there. I'll wait a few more seconds, see if you guys have any other questions, comments. Okay. All right, so here in this part file, let's see if we have other new features we can go over with this one. If not, we'll open up something new, maybe 4 or 5 axis milling, and see the rest of the new features here in V11. All right, so from here, yeah, okay, we got a couple questions, comments coming in, so I'll wait for you guys to ask that, and then I'll go over those and go over what else is new in V11 here. Let me see. So there's not much else for 3-axis, so we'll go into 4 and 5-axis milling for the new features here. All right, so we went over the advanced UI today, went over the contextual menu. And if you would like to follow along here, I will actually get you to that page on my screen so that we can follow along here. Let me share my Chrome tab here. There we go. So from here, we went over the experience, the new advanced UI that we have in each of our milling operations to tab over. And from there, we also have a migration option. We'll go over that next. So we have our contextual menu toolbars that we went over today, and also the new tool crib that we'll go over too. Some of the new options you can read over here as well on our bobcad.com page. If you go to news, it'll be on the very first page here. So if you go to news, it's the very first Bobcat Cam article, top features in Bobcam for SolidWorks V11. So you can read through some of the other great options in the advanced UI further down the page with our remove stock pillars, shift distance. Some options like that will give you great step over abilities that we haven't had before. The migration and pack to go options are great too. So let's go over those now. If I can share my screen of SolidWorks here. So here, if we go to, it's not necessarily here within the functionality of Bobcam, but it's kind of in the background here. If I am using a different machine than just a default Bobcat 3-axis mill, say I'm using this ProtoTrack 3-axis mill to mill out this part file, and I have the post processor for the ProtoTrack 3-axis mill, and I'm using a lot of other, we'll say, custom posting files for drilling and anything else like that from older versions. You can go here to, I don't think it would be settings, it'll be BobCAD help, or BobCam help, sorry. Okay, so if we go to File under SolidWorks, we would go to Help. Help might be further down. File help. Here's our pack and go option for SolidWorks under File. Everything's always moved around in different versions here. So if I went, I know there's an option on the other side too here. There we go. There we go. Okay, so yeah, in SolidWorks 2023, you don't necessarily have like the file help or the help over here on the left side anymore. The newer versions now you have help over on the right side with this question mark. So you'd select that. You would select Bobcam help, and then you have your options of migration and pack to go. So pack to go would pack up the part file, it'll pack up the post processor, and it'll pack up the uh, zipped file for your machine so that when you pack to go, it'll save as a zipped file. You can send it over to another computer that has SolidWorks and BobCAM V11 on it or newer. And you'd go to the top, go to help, go to BobCam help, and then go to unpack. And then you'd be able to select from there, you'd be able to select that zip file from your desktop, from anywhere on your computer, or from a flash drive from another computer with SolidWorks and BobCam on it. If we go back to the help section, go to BobCam help. That was our pack to go and our unpack option here. The first option here is migration at the top. So migration is essentially the same thing, but not with an individual part file. Migration would be for an older version of BobCam and possibly an older version of SolidWorks on a different computer, an older computer, or again, your older version of BobCam. You can just migrate the post processor, machine file, and anything else that you need within the posting to go from an older version of BobCam to a newer one. So that's essentially what the migration option is from an older version to a newer one. And then the pack to go and unpack would be an individual part file you're working on and machine and post, maybe from a different company for BobCam or what have you. So that's a great option here under BobCam help. You have your migration, pack to go and unpack. You also have your activate and transfer license. So if you're using SolidWorks on multiple computers, you only have one individual license of BobCam, or if you're going from your work computer to maybe your home laptop and you want to do some work at home, you can go to transfer license. You can transfer your license ID and password automatically via the internet here. And you would type in your license ID. This is what it would be on my computer, and you would have that license ID and password for the new computer to activate once you've transferred the license from this computer. So from here, we'll go to our other new feature for V11 that we'll go over today, the new tool crib and new tool crib options, kind of highlighting that along with our new advanced UI. And I'll take just a second here to take a break, see if you guys have any questions. While we're taking that second, I'll also type into the comment section, letting you guys know our tech support information. So if you guys have technical support with us, again, we're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you have any questions, any issues with the software program itself, you can call in and we can help you out with that. And we can also answer any questions in case you guys get stuck anywhere along the way with BobCam, with BobCAD, or with our BobCam for Rhino that we have, just like the BobCam for SolidWorks that we're going over today. So I'll type in technical support information. Our phone number and our email address. So our phone number is area code 727-489-0003, and our email address, bobcatsupport.com. So that's phone number 727-489-0003 and bobcatsupport.com. If you need to send us any email, any sort of part file, or anything to work on, any questions that you have for our tech support team here. So we'll go over our last new feature for V11 today. If I go back into this equidistant toolpath and go to our tool page, we'll be highlighting our new tool crib that we have. If we open this up, we have our tool crib and our tool library here on the same page. So we can sort of drag and drop them into the new tool crib, or also add them and also add from the tool library to the tool crib and sort of sort them within the tool numbers themselves. And so that way we can save and delete from the tool library, and we can also import or export from the tool library and also the tool crib. So if we have these tools 1 through 10 here in the tool crib, and we always want them to be highlighted there, or always want them to be predetermined in that tool crib for each new milling operation, we can save that in here now. And we can either renumber from the tool crib, or we can keep them from what they were before. So if we save this out, we would go into the new part file, and we would have the same tool crib as before, defaulted for each new milling job for any machine setup or anything like that. So that's sort of highlighting the new tool crib. Is just after, if I hit previous, within any feature, we have our new UI choice, whether it's standard or the advanced UI. Where again, we can select our geometry in this manner, just like in the premium toolpaths. We have our gouge check page, and we have our new linking options, just as in the premium toolpaths. Where just as here before, we were talking about the lead in and lead out options. So just as we had the vertical, we had tangent, and we had right angle, we have a lot of other new options in here if you wanted to be fancy with the lead in and lead out. If you wanted to do a tangential arc right in, a reverse tangential arc, horizontal tangential arc, orthogonal, any sort of definitional option you want to do here in terms of geometry, vertical, reverse vertical tangent. I mean, there's a lot of different options. You've also got automatic with a very smooth transition to just select automatic and make things easy for you with the lead in and lead out. Automatic for both. You'd be able to recompute that toolpath, and if it's not exactly what you wanted, you can also edit the toolpath, which is a newer option in Bobcam for SolidWorks. It's not for V11. I'd probably say maybe V8 or 9. We had that new in there. You would right click on each operation, on any operation you want to edit. So if you expand any feature, right click on the operation, you would go to edit toolpath here. And here's where you can delete any toolpath. So if I just went in, window selected, a bunch of toolpath here. It's not letting me window select. It's only letting me select one by one. If I go in, we go right into the start point here, the rapid and the entry options here, or the entry options here. Here we go. So the entry options, I can delete them. I can trim and relink them to the next position. I can move them at a certain location. So if I wanted to start from the side here and work my way in, I could either drag it over, or I could type in the coordinates here. I want -2 inches in X, and also in the Y direction, it looks like. So so we would say 12 inches in the Y direction, we could move it over. If I hit OK, it'll save those changes, so it'll start from there and work its way in and exit its way out. You can see this lock once I've completed that edit toolpath procedure. I would, if I needed to change it again, I would right click on that operation again. I would first go to lock or unlock operation. So that lock is off of it. It's red, showing that there's something that needs to be computed again for it. So if I computed it again, it would go back to normal. I could also edit it once it's unlocked at any time, and I can make any changes that I want here. If I wanted to delete any toolpath here, I can hit delete and then hit OK, and it would delete that toolpath for me. So any toolpath that you need changed, deleted, moved, translated over, moved over, you can do that with that edit toolpath option. And then recompute the toolpath. So once we've gone over that tool crib and the edit toolpath option, I'll go back to the comments section here, see if you guys have any questions about the toolpath editor that we have. And all of the newer features here in V11, we have our simulation that can be separate. We have our contextual toolbar. We have our, and I'll go over that here. We have our contextual toolbar. If I highlight any feature or operation, we have a contextual toolbar very similar to SolidWorks, where we can edit the toolpath, copy or paste. We can go right into our toolpath editor. We can post from here, add a note for each feature or operation with our contextual toolbars, and then the newer icons here for each operation to show us exactly what operation is being utilized. We have our tool crib, our new tool crib to be able to import, export, and save that tool crib for each new operation, for each new job. We have our advanced UI. So if we go back into that, our advanced UI here, to go into our all of these same options as in the Mill 3-axis Premium with these tabs to select the gouge check, the linking for each step over, our lead in and lead out options, many new toolpath options for the lead in and lead out, our feeds and speeds here, and then our geometry selection options, being able to constrain the tool path and manipulate it much easier here than before. Also in the Pro, just like with the Premium, within the advanced UI, you have your step over, or you can calculate it based on the desired cusp height here. So if you typed in the desired cusp height, it would change the step over accordingly to the specific tolerance that you need. How this can be beneficial is currently in the 3-axis Pro, you don't have this option. You would have to set up the step over accordingly. You would have to go into simulation and make sure everything is cut to size. If it wasn't, you'd have to go in and change the step over here. Something that can be very helpful is being able to change the cusp height right here. There's no guesswork involved. Bobcam for SolidWorks knows you want to go exactly. That was not a great cusp height. We'll say 1,000th of an inch for the cusp height. or the certain tolerance level you want to get down to, it will have the specific step over you need to achieve that, calculated automatically for you, rather than having to do that manually by verifying that in simulation. So that can be a great benefit to the advanced UI there. And yeah, let me know in the comments section any questions that you guys have with anything we went over today. What I think can be really helpful is the migration, especially if you're going from V10 or V9, or maybe you've waited a couple years to upgrade to the new Bobcam for SolidWorks. You don't have to waste the time or waste the trouble to call tech support to get that switched over. You have that migration tool to go from the older version to the newer one, and everything's loaded from your old version. You got all your templates for your files. You don't need to modify those or update them in the new version. Everything will carry over from your older version. That's probably one of the greatest parts of V11, Bobcam for SolidWorks, is saving the trouble of having everything migrated to the new version. I know with updating, it can be a hassle for any product to have to change your settings again. And the reasons why I don't care to change phones from one year to the next is I don't like having to change my settings over each time. Uh, takes too long to get that settled. So we understand with Bobcam for SolidWorks, all of the settings are going to be are going to be set from your older version with that migration tool. All right. Well, thank you guys for viewing the webinar today, viewing the new features for Bobcam V11, Bobcam for SolidWorks. And thank you for your guys' participation with any questions, comments you guys had about the new features. And we hope to see you next Wednesday. If you go to our page, and I'll actually bring it from SolidWorks to our main page again. We go back to the top of the new features. You can go here to training, and under the webinar options, online training events, you can see where we're at today, and then next week will be the Mill Pro versus Premium options. You'll see a lot of the new features, just like we went over today. Oops. Just like we went over today here in SolidWorks. Some of the advanced UI, you'll see some of those features next week, Wednesday at 1 o'clock. A lot of these things will be going over, just like with the step over and the cusp height that you would see in the premium. You'll see some of those features displayed in next week's webinar. We hope you make it Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And if you have any questions or concerns in the meantime, again, there is our technical support phone number and email address in the comments section. It's our phone number for tech support, 727-489-0003, and email address, bobcatsupport.com. So we're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you guys have any questions with the software program, you can call us and we can help you guys out. Log into your computer like you're logged into mine now and answer any questions that you guys have. And we want to thank everyone again for viewing our webinar today. We'll kind of save you guys the extra time from the webinar we have scheduled today. And again, next week we'll have the Mill Pro versus Premium, and we hope you guys view that. And yeah, thank you again for viewing our webinar today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.